Go ahead.
Welcome into a very special edition of Pressbox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles, and with me is managing editor of PressBoxOnline.com, Luke Jackson. And Luke, I don't think either one of us saw this coming, but it's funny when the phone rang at about 11 o'clock and it was you. I said, I have a feeling the Orioles did something. And they have, in fact, traded a former number one starting pitcher or a number one draft pick who at one time looked to be on the verge of becoming a number one type of pitcher. Grayson Rodriguez, they've traded him to the California Angels for Taylor Ward, a left fielder, power hitter, drove in 103 runs last year, did hit 228, but the OPS, which was like 788 or something like that, against left-handed pitching, was 918 this past season. Your thoughts immediately when you heard about this deal?
Well, I was actually at the Morgan State Hoops game, as you can see right there. I was at the Morgan State Hoops game, and then the my buddies kept texting me on my drive home, and I was thinking to myself, I wonder if the Orioles did something because it was the usual suspects who were texting me
Texting.
feverishly. I should say, and I was right. You were right about me calling you about Orioles news, and I was right about all the texts I was getting on the way home. But anyway. My initial reaction is one of, I don't know if sadness is the right word,
Yeah.
but I guess just the way it went for Grayson Rodriguez here, where we saw how good he could be when he was feeling right. I remember the start he had against Tampa Bay late in 2023. That was a huge start in getting the Orioles to the finish line in the American League East that year. I also remember a start he had in the middle of the year in 2024 against the Phillies, where he shoved against a really, really good Phillies lineup in a packed house. And so you remember just how good he could be when he was feeling right. The issue, of course, was that he didn't feel right very often. And he hadn't pitched since July of 2024 in
Yep.
Toronto, if you recall. So that's almost a year and a half since he had pitched in a major league game. He pitched a little bit in spring training last year, but not much. And so two things come to mind. Number one, I don't think he's going to be built up enough to be a starting pitcher next year. I think I'm going to take a page out of your book, Stan, and say that the Angels should probably just have him be a reliever next year. And if that works out, then maybe you can rethink him think about him again as a starter in the future. But I think building him back up after missing so much time as a
Yeah.
reliever would be the right way to go. And I wonder if the Orioles just think that he's never going to be able to hold up as a starter. And so that's number one. And number two is I wonder, and this is speculation. I don't have any information on this. I wonder about if there was any behind the scene frustrations about how Grayson had handled his rehab and his various rehabs since the middle of 2024. Two injuries had really lingered for a while. The lat has been an issue off and on for him for
Which year?
26.
Which year was the lat when he was still in the minor leagues? When they
2022
22.
is
That's right.
is when it first cropped up for him that we know of in the minors when he was with Norfolk and he was about to get called up, and apparently the bone chips in his elbow had lingered as well. So I wonder if something sort of came to a head this year where frustrations boiled over with the team about, again, pure speculation on my part, and this happens, in sports where there are disagreements about health of a player. It wouldn't be the first time. And it certainly wouldn't be the last time either. And sometimes that ends up with the two parties going their separate ways. So those are the first two things that really came to mind for me.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you, especially on the second part. And I agree with you. It is sad. There's nothing like watching wasted talent. And I
Mhm.
don't mean intentionally wasted talent, or some young player that gets in trouble with the police or doing drugs or something. This was a wasted opportunity to be a great pitcher. And most of it isn't really of his doing, but maybe the Orioles grew frustrated, like you say, with how he was handling some of his own rehab decisions and how he worked through this. So it's an interesting deal. It also it it kicks you back because a lot of us were saying, well, they've got Kyle Bradish should be back ready to grab the number one reins, and we've got Trevor Rogers who's got a chance to be like a real solid three
Mhm.
or higher two, well, not top level two, but and then we'll have Grayson Rodriguez back and Dean
Mhm.
Kramer and all this. To me, it reaffirms what I've thought all along that this year they're much more serious and well funded and on the same page. And I am looking for them, whether it's a trade or a free agent, I'm looking for them to bring in probably two pretty serious pitchers. And I don't have any idea whether it'll be Michael King, Ranger Suarez, but I think they'll get two notable pitchers this year. One of them could be somebody like a Dustin May, who I've talked about, who I think would be worthy of taking a chance on a 1 or 2 year deal. But I think the other one's going to be a real bona fide ace type, whether it's Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan. But I
Mhm.
think the Orioles are going to do something, uh, and they'll do something. I think no later than the winter baseball meeting.
I think you're absolutely right on the starting pitching front, and I think this was the case prior to Grayson getting moved as well, because as we just mentioned, there were serious doubts whether could be a starting pitcher at all this coming year because he hasn't pitched since July of
Yeah,
24.
yeah.
And so, and we'll see what the Angels' plans for him are. But yes, I 100% agree that they need a bona fide stud to fit in with Kyle Bradish and Trevor Rogers atop the rotation. And then they probably need another starter, as you said, on a 1 or 2 year deal, who could fit in on the back end of the rotation. Maybe someone with a little upside and
Yeah,
not
like Dustin May. I feel if Dustin May, and I just read something the other day that he's saying all the right things, that his elbow cleanup
Mhm.
has gone well, and that he's feeling great. Well, what do you expect him to say?
Right.
God, I'm really questionable whether I'm going to be able to go or anything. But I do think there's and I hate to say it, sound cavalier with money these days, but like a 2 year, 14 to $16 million deal for him, he's got an upside of being like a real number two type of a guy, you know. But again, I think they'll get somebody else, but I think they're shaking things up.
Mhm.
And I know you mentioned that to me off the air when you called me. And I think the next big shoe to drop is, I think, by the end of this week. I do not believe they'll tender Ryan Mountcastle a contract.
I 100% agree. I think he's due about 8 million in arbitration, and I don't think they're going to pay it, particularly not after acquiring Taylor Ward,
Yeah.
because he's similar now under contract, not under contract, but under control right now. You have Tyler O'Neill, Taylor Ward, and Taylor Ward is basically a healthier version of Tyler O'Neill.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a lefty masher and he's a low average guy, hits for a lot of power. He'll drive in runs, but he's on the field a lot more than O'Neill. And
The funny thing about Ward is when he first developed into a solid NBA, MLB player, uh, Taylor Ward, he hit
so now we
280.
know when these are done too late.
Excuse me,
You know,
well, he
Stan's
played in
been
the
watching
NHL.
basketball all night. Okay, sorry.
He's been in the NHL too. Did you know that? But anyway, 4 years ago he hit 281, then he hit 253, then he hit
Mhm.
246, and then he hit 228. And the trend is down, but the power's up. He's solid. The one thing I don't like is strikeouts. It continues that. But a question, and again, we're purely conjecturing things tonight. I think the Orioles and Mike Elias, when he looks to trade, I think the Orioles are going to be willing to pick up a good chunk of Tyler O'Neill's due money.
Mhm.
And I think there's going to be an effort to put him say let's say the Twins. When you look at the Twins, who would they have to give up to get Joe Ryan? Well, clearly they're going to have to give up somebody really good. But
Right.
I think you start to throw in 15 million of the 30 million owed
Mhm.
to Tyler O'Neill, and the Twins would only owe him 7.5 million a year. That's just a
Yeah.
hypothetical team, but I think they're going to really try and move him.
Yeah, because he and Ward are pretty redundant. And
Yeah,
as I said, Ward is basically a healthier version of O'Neill.
yeah,
Now, I
and
mean,
Basayo's going to DH a lot
yep,
this year.
yep.
So I really think that Tyler O'Neill's days going to be questionable whether he'll be back in the
Yeah,
road.
and on the Mountcastle front, remember you have Kobe Mayo too, who
Yeah,
did come on strong in September with all reservations about September numbers,
yep,
as we often
yeah,
discuss. But he's a similar hitter to those guys as well. So now you have under club control. You have Mayo, Mountcastle for now, Ward, and O'Neill. Certainly, not all those guys are going to be on the roster next
yeah.
year.
And Mountcastle, I think, will be the first to go.
Right.
Again, look, Buck Showalter, and I always talk about this. He always warned us about watching what a player does in September. Mayo started being more relevant in August,
Hmm.
but the point's well taken that he really put up numbers in September. But he's 2 years removed from being like one of the top five prospects in baseball. And that's not a very long time to think that he suddenly lost it. And I think the way he finished in his case, in his head, he's not going, well, geez, I'm still a question mark. I think he comes in to spring training on a mission next year.
To win that first base job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it'll help him. Now we're off on different topics, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Uh, I think it'll help Kobe knowing that he no longer has to work out at third base. He's not a major league
Right.
third
He's not a
baseman.
third baseman.
Like, just forget about that. Just work at first base, and I think that'll help his bat as well.
All right. Want to remind everybody this is a special edition of Press Box Live. The Orioles have traded right-handed pitcher Grayson Rodriguez, former number one pick under Dan Duquette regime, to the Los Angeles Angels for Taylor Ward, a left fielder who is under contract just for one more year. And I think the Angels, this is a typical kind of trade where they are gambling on somebody. And I think this is a long range move for them. Clearly, they're a well funded team that will pay Grayson what he's due if he's producing. And I think they have a little bit like a 2 year plan for him. And I agree with you. I don't think he starts the season as a starting pitcher.
I I think it would be a mistake to go down that road because he's just going to run out. Even if he's healthy, he's going to run out of gas in July.
Yeah, yeah. I think he could be a great, now you want to call him a starter, but I think he could be a great opener where he goes 3 innings at
Hmm.
a clip, like he did a
Yeah.
lot in the minor leagues, where he builds up and maybe he's a starter, a real starter in the second half of the year, where he starts 10 games legitimately.
Do you think the Angels are going to be in a position where they want to win next year, or are they? This is going to be a building year for them.
I think they're going to try to win. They're doing something.
Who's their manager?
This arm that I've loved for 3 4 years, Reed Detmers. He had a great year last year as a reliever. They're coming back and using him as a starting pitcher. So I think they're going to try and put together a winning season. I don't think it will be a winning season, but I think they have a long term plan here. But
Who's LA?
let me just
Okay.
remind folks, we've been brought to you tonight by the Costas Inn, and we're not finished just yet. But I want to remind everybody that Costas Inn now with two great locations. The old location, 4100 North Point Boulevard, the mothership, so to speak, of the Costas Inn, and the new location at the right next to the OTB above the grandstand at Timonium Racetrack. And again, can be a little tricky figuring out if you're going there for the first time. but you basically, if you're coming off of 83 toward York Road, on the right hand side, you're going to see an 84 lumber sign. It's on the left hand side, right across from that 84 lumber. You kind of peer off on your left lane into a turn lane, and you go in, and it's about 500 yards down, but clear signage once you're in on the facility at the Timonium Fairgrounds. All right. We love the Costas Inn, and we appreciate their sponsoring all these shows that we do. Luke, anything else? The Orioles have added Cameron Foster, a
Hmm.
pitcher, and Reed Trimble, an outfielder. What do you think of those moves?
Well, I haven't seen Reed Trimble since he was at Aberdeen a little while ago, so I don't really have anything there, and I haven't seen Foster at all, so I don't really have anything to add
Okay.
on those guys. I don't know if you do.
Interesting names that I hadn't really thought of in terms of being on the 40 man, you know.
Oh, here's one. So four qualifying offers were accepted today. Well, I guess most people will be listening to this on Wednesday. So on Tuesday, four qualifying offers were accepted. Any surprise to you?
Let's see, it was Gleyber Torres,
Hmm. Imanaga,
Imanaga, the Yankees,
Grisham.
Grisham, and who was the fourth one?
Ooh. This is great video. This is
Yeah,
terrific.
well,
Just
it's 12 o'clock at night,
so, but
and
any surprise with
what
those
we're
three?
making tonight doing this,
Yeah.
that's what you deserve. Um, I would say the interesting one was Grisham and what it does, because there has been some rumors that the Orioles really might go after a serious bat, more serious than Taylor Ward, and that Bellinger might be one of the names that pops up on their radar. It'll be interesting to see now that they have $22 million committed to Tristan Grisham, that whether or not they will sign Bellinger to an extension there with the Yankees. That's an interesting one for me. I'm trying to think of who the fourth one was, and it's why don't you talk for a second and
So
I'll figure it
Brandon
out.
Woodruff was the other
Brandon Woodruff,
qualifying
yeah,
offer, and
yeah,
that made some people wonder about the availability of Freddie Peralta because now Woodruff is going to make 22 mil next year. Uh,
right,
and so do they want to pay Woodruff and Peralta a combined roughly 30 million next year?
yeah.
I don't know
That
the answer
doesn't
to that.
sound like a
That
lot of
doesn't
money
sound
to
bad
me.
to me. Those are
No,
two quality starters.
no.
So, I mean, that doesn't sound too bad to me, but Milwaukee operates a little differently, particularly when guys are close to free agency, as we saw with Burns.
The problem for us is I'm thinking if they're giving up Peralta,
Hmm.
they're going to want some arm back, that's like ready to be major league ready. And I don't see anybody like a DL Hall in the Orioles system right now. Maybe, um,
Well, they just traded the one guy who would fit.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
So
so,
I don't see that trade coming this way. I don't see that. But
were you a little surprised that Grisham took the deal?
not really. He was one of the weakest hitters I've
Right.
ever seen. And then all of a sudden they worked with him on something. I don't know what, but or maybe it was the juice. But he hit 34 home runs. He hadn't had 34 home runs in his career before that. But
He's
he's
probably tickled to death to make $22 million in one
probably
season.
tickled to death to make $22 million. So Gleyber
And then
Torres goes back to the Tigers, Woodruff and Imanaga. I think Imanaga might be a trade candidate.
I 100% agree because Craig Counsell in the playoffs trusted Imanaga about as far as he could throw him.
Yeah.
And once you get into the playoffs, as we know, those pitch to contact guys do not work. You need swing and miss in the playoffs. Okay? That's what you need.
Lot before we wrap up, a lot of action is percolating now. And I'm always hesitant now, Luke. I used to go to the winter baseball meetings when I was younger and doing a regular talk show. And I was so excited to get there. because you'd be with all the general managers and the big time writers and all, and you'd sit there with your thumbs up your ass, basically up your
Yeah, you
ass.
hurry up to wait, right?
Yeah, you hurry up to wait. I have a feeling this year, and I haven't said it in a long time. I think there's a lot of action percolating this year because I think teams, the more baseball's become a business, these teams want to really compete now. I don't think a lot of teams are willing to go into a season knowing that they're going to suck. You know,
Speaking of which,
there
uh,
was a small
so
trade made between the Rays and the White Sox tonight. Steve Wilson went to the Rays, and Gomez went back to the White Sox. I think Yoendris, Gomez, and two other players.
I don't know if
All
that's
right.
quite as interesting as the Orioles giving up on Grayson Rodriguez.
No, not at all. It's
But I did read something interesting I wanted to throw by you.
yeah,
You mentioned teams wanting to be competitive, that maybe ordinarily are not. So we saw from Jeff Passan, in
yeah.
his story, that came out on ESPN.com this morning, that the Pirates were in aggressive pursuit for Josh Naylor, who ended up signing with the Mariners for 5 years and 92.5 million, which I think is a pretty good deal for Seattle. Maybe a year too long, but 18 million a year for a good bat, that's pretty good.
I think it's a great deal for them.
Do you think the Pirates are being serious about trying to surround Paul Skeens with some bats? Because they do have some arms, but
They
they
do have some good arms. I think they're serious. The problem with them, I don't know that say a Kyle Schwarber, you've got to like over to me
right.
for him to play for them, you'd have to overpay. I don't know that the manager, what's his name, Don Miller, is that his name?
Don, it's Don Kelly.
Don Kelly. I don't know that he's an attractive enough manager. Now, I don't know him, but I don't know that he's got pizzazz to really like attract a big time player like that that's going to trust that, hey, this guy. So I think that they'll end up settling for much more middling talent. And I think they can compete with, and I threw out the name to you earlier today, Marcelo Suna might be a guy that the Pirates could get for 2 years and $15 million.
You know who would be a great fit there? And I'm sure their fans would love Kyle Schwarber or Pete Alonso or a bat like
Yeah,
that. Seriously, Ryan O'Hearn. They desperately need professional hitters.
professional hitters. Yeah,
He is a professional hitter. They need a first baseman. I would really like the fit with him in Pittsburgh. He
I
would bring some
agree, and
professionalism to that
it's
lineup.
his kind of town.
Very, look,
A
he
blue collar
succeeded in
town.
Baltimore. He would
Yeah,
succeed in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
yeah,
You know,
I
not
agree. He'd be an excellent fit. You give them Osuna and take a chance that he's not washed up at 35. 35, you can bounce back and have another couple good years. And the last 2 years, now this year he drove in 66 runs, I think, but the previous 2 years he was a 100 RBI guy. There's not going to be much interest in him, but he and O'Hearn would be a great duo for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
they, as we said, they do have some arms. I wonder if they take one of those arms and swing him for a bat.
Yeah,
Just to
Tyler O'Neill.
could be, and they can throw in
You
Mitch
mean
Keller in that
How
deal.
about Skeens for Tyler
Hey,
O'Neill?
I'm all in, buddy.
And we're eating all the money.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Hey, that's going to do it for tonight. A late night edition. We miss our buddy Ross Grimsley, who's down in Florida, but
He's been asleep for 4 hours.
he's probably been 3 or 4 hours. I texted. I just want to text. I texted Dan Duquette, and I have not got a response. I said, Dan, don't know if you're up, but the Orioles traded Grayson Rodriguez for Taylor Ward.
That was
Wanted to
Dan's
see what he
last
said.
first round pick with the Orioles.
I think so. I think
Yep,
was he drafted after Gosman
correct. So
Yeah,
Gosman was
and early.
2012,
Yeah.
and Grayson was 2018.
Wow. Wow. Yeah,
It's amazing how quickly it goes on.
Gosman was his first number one pick, I think.
Yes, Yes.
Okay.
And it was a damn good one. He was just not developed properly.
Retro it doesn't was not developed. All right, that's going to do it. I appreciate Luke you calling me and then jumping on with us. Uh, Glenn Clark will have plenty about this in the morning, and that's going to do it for us. We thank the Costas in, and as events warrant during the off season, Luke and I will jump on when events warrant. All right, that's it for now.